Let's center with Psalm 46. Would you join me in the bold clap? God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble.
Therefore we will not fear, though the earth should change, though the mountains shake and our hearts see.
Though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble with its tumult.
There is a river whose streams and glass is glad, a holy habitation of the Most High.
God is in the midst of the city, which shall not be moved. God will help it at the dawn of the day.
The nations rage, the kingdoms sigh, God's voice resounds, the earth melts.
The Lord of hosts is with us.
The God of Jacob is our refuge.
Come, behold the works of the Lord, who has wrought desolations in the earth.
He makes war cease to the end of the earth, breaks the bow, shatters the spear, and burns the shields of the fire.
Be still and know that I am God. I am exalted among the nations. I am exalted in the earth.
The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge.
With an awareness of God's presence, I wanted to share with you a little poem that came to mind for me pretty quickly on learning about very sudden loss. Whenever I think about Valerie, I think about just the extraordinary reach and influence and impact that she had on so many lives near and far, and just this remarkable and rather unique way to nurture folks and to call them into ministry, to call them into pastoral ministry, and to call them into other forms of ministry. And I'm just mindful of the ways that she influenced and impacted so many lives so deeply. This poem by a poet, and I'll call her a prophet as well, Maya Angelou, "When Great Trees Fall," came to my mind. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder, lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants slumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly. Our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses, restored, never to be the same, whisper to us. They existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. Knowing the mighty influence that Valerie Stultz had on our lives, what I want to invite you to do is just take a few moments. We can't all necessarily speak to the influence that she had on our life or the stories that we might want to share, and so we want to invite you to do that just with the folks who are near you. Let's just take some time. Share some stories with your neighbors, share some stories, some memories, be in conversation with one another about the impact that Valerie Stultz had on your life, and the things that you remember and recall so fondly about her. Be in conversation with your neighbors, please. hesitating to say anything because that's just a really, really staggeringly beautiful sound to hear the sound of stories and to hear the sound of memories just bubbling up all over the place through the sanctuary. So thank you. Our hope really is that through the process of just sharing those stories and sharing those memories, that in and of itself might be a bit of a healing experience for us. And we want to share some of those stories, or at least provide the opportunity for you to share some of those stories that you might have shared with one or two people next to you, if you would like to share those with the whole group. So I've got a walkable mic here that I'm happy to walk to you. Does anybody have a story, a memory, a word they'd like to share with the body?
The first Christmas season, Valerie was with us. Harold and I were sitting in our accustomed spot right over here. And it was just a couple weeks before Christmas. Excuse me. I'd gotten a new necktie a few days before. It was the first time I wore it. It was a holiday tie, if you will. And we're sitting there during the sermon, and all of a sudden, I heard very softly, jingle bells. Very soft. I looked around me. It was coming from me. This new tie that I had, I was not aware that it had a little, I don't know the term, or a little button on the inside of the tie. And without activating it, it's played one tune of Jingle Bells. I was stunned. Valerie stopped. And she said, I don't know where it is, but I hear Christmas music. And it repeated again. And when I finally figured it out, I was most embarrassed, but apparently no one behind me, us, heard it, and only she heard it. So the little story is that I played Jingle Bells for Valerie during her service.
Somewhere around a dozen or so years ago, we went on a trip, and it was Paul's first missionary journey. Bishop Hopkins, others from the Eastern Rock Conference were on this thing. Alan and I went with Valerie and Buck and the Simons. There were 6 of us from this church who went. And one of the places that we went to, we were on a cruise ship around the Mediterranean. And one of the stops was Antioch. In the Bible, it's called Antioch in Syria. It's now in Turkey. That's where we went. And it's also known as the first place where these people were called Christian. So anyhow, we got there and they called us in a coach of some sort up on a mountainside. Here was this place. Sometime, maybe hundreds of years after they were there, someone built a front on it so it looked more like a church, but it was nothing but a cave on the side of a mountain. When we went in there, here's an altar, very minimal, anything, just here it was, just this little space. And we were given to understand this could be where they met to make a decision on these missionary journeys. Well, we know it was a place because we walked in there, Valerie got the message. She got the feeling that indeed we were in the space where Peter and Paul and all those people were deciding on their missionary journeys. her light shines on.
I think I'd only been here about a year when Pastor Valerie came, and one of the first, I think there was 4 of us on staff at the program at that time. And I remember she said to each of us, you know, we're all part-time. This is what I expect. And if you don't want to do my way of what I'm going to ask you, then, you know, find another church. And the main was, I want you to only give me 60 hours. You know, on paper it said 24, but all 4 of us stayed, and she had a great team. Many of you were in choir, which she had no doubt. Diamond, she has a church, and then Vivian and I. And, but one of my, I never hesitated, because as you know, she gave 80, that's how I thought. She was giving 80 hours, I'll give 60. She kept giving 90, I'm like, no more, I'm not gonna give more. But I can remember one Saturday or Sunday, I was driving in the church, and the Fish radio show talked about National Mental Health Day. And I see some of you social workers sitting here, so you might remember it. It was involved too. I said to Pastor Valerie, you know, the Fish is doing all the marketing, they're doing all the advertising, all we have to do is to get social workers in the building to do the screening. And she's like, yeah, go ahead and do it. We had like 17 social workers here for our entire day screening, and what was so wonderful, some of them were teenagers that their parents had gone and gotten them out of school because they sensed that they had depression. And every one of those social workers followed up on giving them like 6 weeks of free one-on-one. So whenever you had an idea, many of you know that, whenever you had an idea about student ministry or whether Greg Wren should be doing something, or Jim Rollins, you know, the leaders that were called out of her ministry, all you had to do is just say, what do you think? And she'd say, go do it. So one time with marriage counseling, I remember she'd do about 3 times with people, and then she would refer them out. And so one time we were talking, she married your daughter, 17 years they've been married. She had a whole group that had just been married a year, and so she said, can you put a class together for me, Karen? I'll do the content, you do the thick work, and you do the opening and the Bible scriptures. And so it was one Sunday afternoon about 3. Even though she lived close by, and you can run home and back and forth and fast, she stayed here, and she said, go get me Wendy's. As you know, that was her favorite fast food place. And so I came back and was tiptoeing into the parlor, and there she was, sound asleep, as you know, with her shoes off, because she liked to take her shoes off. And I remember looking and thinking, there's no way I'm going to give you this food. You're crashed and burned. I'll come back about 2:30 and wake you up, because you would be embarrassed if they all walked in and saw you asleep.
We did not have names for my children prior to going into the hospital for the birth. We did know the 2 girls, the last ones, what their gender was. So after I had Madeline in 2005, the very next day, I don't know where Mark was or the 2 kids. My mom was there, and Valerie walked in, and after about, I don't know, 2 minutes of pleasantries, she said, what's the name of this child? And I said, I don't know, we haven't made up our minds yet. And she said, well, I have to go back to the church, and I can't go back to the church without a name. So we need to come up with a name. So my mom and I started talking about a name, and then we very gently started turning the topic somewhere else, because Mark wasn't there, and I wasn't going to come up with a name without him being there. And so then after a little bit, she's like, time's ticking, I gotta go, we have to have names. So I think the kids kind of liked Stephanie and Abigail, and I'm not sure where Mark and I were sitting Because she always got away.
Are there others?
Some of you will remember when Ron had his hip surgery, that he walked with a walking stick. Well, after he was finished with his walking stick, Valerie asked if she could borrow it. The next Sunday, she did a sermon. And I don't remember what the sermon was about, but every point she made, she banged that stick on the floor time after time until it was really funny.
There's really so many wonderful stories about Valerie, but the one that comes to mind is when Cindy and I were sitting right about where Roy is sitting, and she was coming down the center aisle doing her morning announcements, and she stopped and she said, "You shaved your mustache," right in the middle of her announcements. And that's what I loved about her. She was spontaneous. She was just so gracious. She made you feel like family. She made us all feel like family. And we just loved her so much.
We are classmates of Valerie's from the Nation Spirituality Institute at John Carroll, so we all studied to be spiritual directors together. And one of the things I find poignant in the memory that I have is that years ago we were giving a retreat and she gave a talk and talked about Lakeside. And in the talk talked about her incredible experience of the Holy Spirit and how much she loved that place, how it was a fit place for her in her spiritual life. And I find it particularly poignant and touching that that's where the end of her life was, is where she felt very close to God. So while I am beyond sad, I am deeply touched that that's where her life ended.
There are others.
I came to this church when I was 14, and Valerie came in the midst of my high school years, which were not easy years. When I was 16, I went into her office one day, just out of the blue, didn't make an appointment, just showed up, plopped myself down in a chair and said, "So, I think maybe I want to be a pastor." And looking back on that now, I just feel so naive, just going and saying, "Yeah, I think maybe that's what I want to do." But she welcomed that so warmly and said, "Okay, well, we should talk about that." And that's what we did from that point on. And from that point on, she included me in so much. I followed her around like a little duck. And, just like a surgeon teaching a medical student, everything she did, she would explain as she was doing it. Why she was doing it that way, whether we were setting up for a meeting or writing an agenda. Like, who includes a 16-year-old in that, right? That was the most loving thing that she did for me, and I miss her dearly.
The thing I really remember more about Valerie than anything else, I was sharing with Megan back here, was the fact that if we had an idea, she would be the first to go, "Okay," but then she would kind of tweak it a little bit, change it a little bit, and yet you would walk away thinking, "Boy, I had a great idea, and I got her to do what I wanted her to do," and she was really good at that. I watched her do it with other people too, and it was like, "Oh, this lady's good."
I got here a little bit late, so I'm not sure what was said previously, but Valerie was, of course, very near and dear to us. the reputation really preceded her because I was chairman of the staff parish committee at the time we were searching for a pastor. And she was not going to be available for about 8 or 9 months because she was finishing out a term as a district superintendent. So we decided that we really wanted to wait for her. And in the meantime, we had a committee meeting and decided that what we would do is see if we could not get an interim pastor that could fill in the 8 months that we needed a pastor. And so we got the bright idea that we would contact Cal Myers, who had retired and was in Colorado. And Dr. Malarkey was on our committee at the time, who was president of the college at that time. And so with his help, we managed to convince Cal Myers to fill in for us for 8 months so that we could have Valerie as our pastor. And then interestingly, before she was able to serve her at least 8 years with us, they called her again to be a district superintendent. And she was very torn. She really wanted to stay here with us, but she felt that she had to do what was best for the Northeast Conference, and so she left us then to become the district superintendent. But I truly think that she was always with us and that she had a special place. And as you said, all of us think that she was, we were her best friend because she made us feel that way. And I think we felt that we were her best church because she made us feel that way.
Kelly Watts. I was the district associate for 9 years with Clark Kendall and Julius Trimble. And my wife Joan really was, Valerie really was her best friend and in the conference. And I was back and forth from Berea a lot, Rick Palmer and other times. The best time that I remember at Berea was the Madrigal dinner. Remember that?
Yes.
And so she and Bucky invited us to the Madrigal dinner, and we got there, and she said, well, we're going to be at the head table, so you need to come in and change. I said, change? For what? She said, well, we have this puffy shirt for you, and we have this feathered hat, and we have a pair of tights. So anyway. And then Bucky and I, Joan and Valerie served as district superintendents together. So Bucky and I, we served at the clergy women's breakfast. And we were the most popular table. Because we were the only district superintendents' husbands who were there. There's always a district superintendent's reunion luncheon on Wednesday, annual conference. So we had lunch with Valerie. And then afterwards, she and Joan spent the afternoon together, and she came with a box and a card. Joan's birthday is the 27th of June. So Valerie said, I know that I'm not going to see you again before your birthday, so I want you to have your present early. She gave her a green hoodie with a moon and an elk on the front for her walks in the woods. They used to walk in the woods together. Joan was able to go to the hospital. She found out on Thursday from the bishop. Bishop tracked her down, and she was able to be at the hospital with Kara and Judy Clayton and others around her final bedside at the hospital, and she will be at the service in Delaware tomorrow.
Are there others? The gift is the sharing. Thank you for those stories that you share. Yeah. Yep.
few things about Valerie. Number one, when she first came to the church, we were meeting and discussing services. We'd already added a couple of suggestions, forms, and we said, gee, that's my work. She said, well, that's my job. Anytime you want to have a service, I'll do it. So, moving ahead to a conference where the jurisdictional conference where Greg was elevated, and if you ever talk to him, he'll say he was elevated. That's a Catholic term, and hastened. So, on the other hand, if you want to get under your skin. Anyway, he was elected as a bishop, and we were in a meeting with the district, and she and Sally Dick were talking, discussing their future. And I don't know what the general conversation was, except that Sally said, well, do you want to make an effort to move up? And Valerie said no, she really liked to preach, and she wanted to go to a congregation. So Sally, of course, went up, and Valerie came back. Unfortunately, I don't think she did get another congregation. She was after she was district superintendent for several times, which in talking to her, I don't think she really liked it. She said, that's what we're going to do, that's what the other thing that made her unhappy was she was very active in the district conference and I don't know what particular chairmanship she had, but she had to give, I don't know if it was the DS, all the DS's wives, and she had to give some kind of a meeting. And of course, when they have a conference like that, when pastors have a meeting, they always arrange something for the pastor's wives. So of course, being the spouse, would have a meeting. She says, every time we have one of these things, Buck gets more people at his meeting than I get to mine. So Buck was a great guy too.
Are there others?
I'm Bruce Batchelor-Glader. I'm a United Methodist pastor, retiring in about 1 week. And I've been involved with lots of things where Valerie and I would just kind of follow each other or walk alongside of each other. But the thing that I remember, I had the chance to go to a jurisdictional conference. My only time I was a reserve delegate. We were at Grand Rapids, and we were just electing one person. That's where Julius Trimble was eventually elected bishop, but we were all there, and just out of the middle one afternoon, Valerie just said, you know, we got these alternates here, you know, they're just sitting around cooling their heels. Why don't we just let them take our places and be the official delegates for this afternoon? So they just kind of stepped down and let us all sit in the seats and feel really important for about 4 hours, and that was very nice. And that was her graciousness, and she had the opportunity to make a jurisdictional conference very special for all of us lowly reserve delegates. So so many things I'm thankful for Valerie for. When you think of her, you just run out of words, and it's just nice to be here and pay her tribute by showing up.
Thank you. Are there others? Beautiful time sharing. Thank you.
We're going to move into a time of prayer now. Lord, we lift up these memories of our dear sister in Christ. It's a form of gratitude for the gift that you've given us in Valerie. We have learned so much from her. We ask that you would be with us as we keep her in memory. Be with us as we grieve. And yet we rejoice knowing that she is with you. Valerie shared the light of Christ with all of us and taught us to share the light with others. And so we do that now, Lord, as we have this moment of silence with you, remembering.
For your light, for your love, which never ends. We give you thanks. Amen. I would invite you to stay in this place in prayer, conversation, as long as you like, and when you go in peace.